go ahead and start the planning and zoning meeting for the month of June. Agendas are here if anybody needs one.
Yes, we all
We're-
have one.
I'm sorry?
I'd like to have one.
Okay. We've got quite a few to get through, but we'll definitely cover anything we need to. What we'll do is we'll open up the meetings on each agenda item and then close them, then the board will discuss it, and then we'll vote and move on to the next one. So please feel free if you have any comments to jump in there at the right time for the right agenda item. And we have quite a few more people than we usually have. We're glad you're here, and we're glad you're concerned about our city, as we all are. That's why we sit on this board, so we appreciate your attendance. Adrian, will you please call the roll? So we're
Mr. Hogan?
Here.
Ms. Metcalf? Mr. Kerrigan?
Here.
Mr. Driver?
Here.
Mr. Masters?
Here.
Ms. Lindsay? And Mr. Bush?
Here.
Adrian, do you have any minutes from the last meeting? Okay, we'll defer on the minutes from the last meeting then.
All the way back to February.
I understand that, so you have a task to do.
Yeah.
Okay, first one is a replat request for 113 33rd Street. This time we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Is anybody here to represent that request, or does anybody have any comments?
Yep, so.
Please state your name, where you live, for the record.
Lance Watson, Southeastern Consulting Engineers. So this request was submitted by Ms. Sheila Collins and Kay Haddock, and so I'm more or less here to answer any questions for them, or on their behalf, if anybody has any. One thing I did notice in the package is the first few pages, the actual plans that are on the title block, I think there's, on our title block, that is a year ago, so that shouldn't have been submitted. What is actually being requested is the plat that's at the end, right there. So that is through conversations with, between.
Back up, big picture, and tell us what, what's
All right,
happening,
so
what
right
you
now
want to
there's-
happen.
right now
You're
there's
very
a-
familiar with it, we're not. so.
Right now, there's a landward and a seaward lot, and they're split right in the middle. The house that was on it prior to the storm that was destroyed was just over the lot line, but it's one big parcel encompassing two lots. The seaward lot, DEP is not letting them build on that, so they're wanting to replat it into two Gold Front lots. And between 45 and 50, let's see, 59 feet wide, 100 long. So, and that's because DEP set their build-to line so that the southernmost lot, the seaward lot, couldn't be built on. So they're wanting to replat this back into two lots, but shoreline perpendicular instead of parallel. And the setbacks that are shown, we're actually going through with Ms. Tanya, how we came up with those, and a little bit before that, whenever we're working with EPCI. But the latest setbacks that the preliminary plat shows was based off conversations with Ms. Tanya.
Was there a house on the seaward lot before?
No, sir. And DEP is not letting it go, anything go any further than the original house was.
Why? And I'm confused. You got a lot that you can't.
Well, it's not a parcel, it's a lot line, but it's all one parcel.
But I mean, you have a lot you couldn't build on, somebody owns something they couldn't build on.
It's unfortunate, but
Right,
yes, sir. that's what's
DEP,
correct.
that's not unusual in our area, that DEP has a line going down the beach that you must be behind, or meet certain requirements to build close to it.
So that lot essentially, not essentially, it was 100% unbuildable because of DEP, so now they've taken out lot line and just made it
So
shoreline.
they own the lot before the
Yes, sir.
ruling was made, and so they just got ruled out of building.
Yep, and this is all post-Hurricane Michael stuff. Before, pre-hurricane, that would have been buildable, the southernmost lot. So-
Okay, okay, now I'm sorry.
So why does DEP not allow them to build?
Because they are not allowing any of the structures right there in that area to go any further seaward than they were prior to the storm, regardless of whether.
Okay, so then by switching basically the address of this house, they're gonna be able to circumvent DEP and build on it.
Yes, sir, they'll be
Yes.
able to meet DEP's rule and build,
Not close.
not any further seaward.
Build two houses.
That's why it's going
Do
shoreline
you have-
perpendicular, so that they can build two houses at that same build-to line.
Do you have, on the plans you're holding, do you have a picture of that, so we can see?
On the
it?
plans that are irrelevant as far as the proposed goes, there's existing.
Second to the
conditions.
last.
This one, right?
Keep going back,
It's
forward, forward, I mean.
two from the back. from the-
Yeah, there's an existing conditions page, yeah, right, one more back, that shows,
Just
one
one.
more,
So what they
No,
want to do
it's
is
not
put
on
an
there.
easement
shows the lot line
to
there.
get to this.
On the original pages, it shows the original lot line, it's basically halfway across the two lots. And that house was, 5 feet onto lot, I think it's 7 and 8, onto lot 8. And so that's as far seaward as they can go.
So at the end of the day, and I don't put words in your mouth, but this is important as a zoning board, you will meet the setbacks of 7.5 on the side, 10 in the back, 20 in the front.
Yep, and if you'll look too, this kind of, the way that these setbacks were put in here, and again, this is from conversations with Miss Tanya, the roadside setback is considered the front on the western lot, which is typical, and on the eastern lot, the gulf is considered the front, and it allows them to build a little further north, since DEP is not allowing them to go past that line, that seaward line.
I wanna make sure that I understand this. One parcel of land, did it previously have one home or two homes on it?
It previously had one home, the parcel line, or the lot line is shown right here.
Okay. So,
And so that other.
could they, without any changes here today, build another home on that piece of property?
Right, yes, sir.
Yes. But the request is to replat it so you can build two homes on that piece of property, side by side, is that?
Yes, sir. And pre-storm, you would have been allowed to build two homes. DEP didn't have that line, didn't enforce the line that they're enforcing now, which is the seaward portion of that house. They did not enforce that prior to the storm.
So the owner's gonna sell one of his lots, basically.
Yeah, well, both lots. The mother lot, the parent parcel, is what they're wanting to, well, they want to turn it into, and the purchaser, the buyer's gonna buy both lots, is my understanding. But yeah, they wanna make two lots, which was originally two lots. They wanna make two lots out of two lots. They just want to spin it 90 degrees. Right? Yes, sir.
Okay, I obviously dense, I'm not the smartest person in the world. But by changing the front of the house, how are they still gonna meet the DEP no-build line?
Because now they're able to line up beside each other instead of one north, one south, there's one east, one west. And they're shoreline
We're
perpendicular.
gonna put two narrow houses on what was.
Well, not necessarily narrow, these are still 50-foot lots.
So can you show me on this where the no-build line is?
Yes, sir. What kind of park, Mr.?
Yeah.
Where that southern roof line is, that is the built-to line. That whole and that was also the lot line.
Okay, so they're trying to circumvent DEP then, is what they're trying to do,
They're trying to.
based on what I'm seeing here.
They're trying to meet DEP's requirements.
Well, they're not gonna meet DEP's requirements if they
Yes, they
build
will.
on that first lot.
They'll build,
No, they're splitting it. There won't be a first lot. and a
That's what
second
it
lot.
looks
There'll be
like
two
now.
There won't be a
side-by-side
north and south
lots if
lot,
they
it'll
get
be an
their
east and west lot.
Right.
They'll split it in half and put two homes side by side.
If this is a DEP build line right here, is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
Yes.
And they build a home on this lot, that is forward of that no-build line.
That is what it is now. Now look at the other map, the other parcel that shows the two, on the table.
Yeah.
The two side by side, they're gonna
There's the
split it in half.
DEP line.
Well, that's what I'm saying, where is the no-build line on this map?
That red line I just drew.
This line?
So yeah, two houses go north of that, yes, sir.
So they're gonna build here and here?
Mhm.
Then why are you showing this lot like
That's the
that?
parcel.
That's the parcel.
The parcel?
The parcel goes all the way to where it went before, prior to.
Okay, got it. Now I understand.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm dense.
The good news is DEP's not gonna let them do anything
Right, it's
close to
preserving the
the water,
beach.
so. We're set there. So basically, they're reorientating the lots to be Gulf front while respecting the DEP line, which comes back from the Gulf.
Right.
Was that 2 lots before, or 1 lot?
It was 2 lots.
2 lots with 1 structure on it?
Right.
Okay.
So how big are the lots gonna be behind the DEP line?
How much will be left behind the DEP line?
Yeah, how big are the lots gonna be that they can build on?
They're 150-foot deep, well, they range between 130 and 150, and they can only build on less than the northern half of the park.
Okay, so how does that square with the restrictions on square footage? I mean, how big a house are they gonna be able to build on this?
They are going to build, I wanna say it's 27 by 48, 2-story, is my understanding.
And Tanya's run the numbers on pervious and non-pervious?
Oh, yes, sir, we ran the numbers on that in order to create the line work that the surveyor used to make the plat. So it'll meet all setbacks, all the impervious surface area, DEP, all
Okay,
that.
and I noticed that the staff has recommended approval in the paperwork that we got.
I have a comment
Okay?
that was received via email. To whom it may concern, my name is Holly Elves, and my husband and I are the owners of 114 33rd Street, which is the home directly across from Miss Cullen's lot in question. We were permanent Mexico Beach residents at the time of Hurricane Michael and are looking forward to returning soon. It is difficult to understand how Miss Collins is experiencing a hardship to rebuild, as she states in her application for replat. In fact, there was only 1 home on those 2 lots prior to Hurricane Michael. She doesn't seem to be experiencing a hardship to rebuild her vacation home, as it appears she is not the person building on the land at all. Currently, the MLS lists 113 33rd Street as a contingent sale for a price of $799,000. What seems to be her economic incentive to sell the lots so that the 2 homes may be built where originally there was only 1 is counter to the intent of maintaining Mexico Beach true to its original form. The city manager's assessment states that she would recommend approval pending no other variances. It has been my experience that the only way to ensure no further variances on a lot is by way of a self-imposed deed restriction on the lots themselves. If the council and board moves to approve this replat, please ensure the deed restriction is executed and documentation is appropriately provided prior to issuing a building permit. We are excited to see Mexico Beach rebuild, but like all other full-time residents, we want to see the former character preserved. As the council contemplates this request, I encourage you to consider the precedent you are setting for the future of Mexico Beach. Kindest regards, Holly.
So there's no hardship required for this isn't a variance.
Right, so we,
Replat.
okay. Any other public comments?
I'll make a comment.
Sure.
Zach Childs, 98 Real Estate, don't have a dog in this fight, but DEP is really pushing back owners bad. It is not the intent of the city with the plats. If they could follow city rules, these people would be great, but they'd never be here. But the state is really pushing our their fronts back, so I hope on this one and others that you guys consider working with them, otherwise the state's gonna make some of our Gulf front lots unbuildable like they're doing here. So these people are lucky that they have 2 lots. We're gonna have a lot of problems with people that only have 1 just being buildable. But there's about 6 or 7 owners that have 2, so the real estate community hopes you'll work with them, so we can have 2 nice houses instead of 1 and 1 unbuildable lot, so, we're for it.
And it's platted as 2 lots previously.
Yes, sir, there's 2 lots, it's lot 7 and 8, I believe, 2
They've
lots.
got a huge
previous.
platted lot, but the city platted it, the DEP say, well, now you can't build on it, because DEP's trying to claim back as much as they can after this, which if that's right, that is, but you're gonna have people that no longer have buildable lots, but in this case, they have an opportunity to have 2 nice lots, 2 nice homes.
Okay, good comment. Anybody else?
Good question. So it's requested for a hardship, and I understand that. How does it affect the character of the beach in that area? So what are the other homes that neighbor it? Does it in any way put a hardship on those other owners that have?
You know, I can't answer that directly, other than looking at the easements, and it meets the easements requirements for the entire city. So as far as a hardship, you might not have had,
2 in one spot before, but.
or your neighbor might have been 20 feet away, and now it would be 7.5 on the side, or whatever the easement is. That would be the change that I
2
would.
blocks west, there's a 4-unit multifamily structure on a lot with less width. So it's in the area.
I'm just following up on this one
Yep.
letter, and wonder if they were,
Yep.
how it fit in the neighborhood.
Okay.
And the last one, Jack's probably 10 years ago, Mr. Gibbs applied for one. And the neighbors came out then and said, integrity of the neighborhood, we don't, because everybody's got a 100-foot lot. Well, now you've got quadplexes, 25-foot lots, 10-foot lots, I mean, so 50 foot's not gonna be the small guy out there anymore.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we're gonna close the public comment. Does anybody in the board have any comment? We heard from Jack.
As long as they meet the DEP setback requirement and they meet everything under the LDR, I see no reason not to grant the replat. As long as everything is met.
My concern would be if we're setting some kind of precedent. I haven't really looked at this real close. I'm concerned about setting a precedent, but I don't like it, but I don't see any reason to vote against it.
At this point, the LDRs have set the precedent, because they do meet the LDR. This meets the LDR.
I don't like it, but I'll vote for it.
Fair enough.
Does anybody else on the board have any comments?
I
Okay,
agree with Jim. I mean, it meets all the requirements of the LDR and DEP, so I don't really see a reason to disapprove it just because we don't like it necessarily. I mean, we have a set of criteria that we go by to establish a yay or a nay, and if they meet it, then I would be hard pressed to say no.
all right, close the comments from the board. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we recommend to the council that they grant the replat on 33rd.
I second.
Second. Adrian, when you're caught up, could you call the roll?
Mr. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Kerrigan,
Yes.
Mr. Driver,
Yes.
Mr. Masters,
Yes.
Mr. Bush.
Yes.
Okay. Next one. Replat number 2. And this is for 104D South 37th Street. And we'll open a public hearing at this time. And is there anybody here representing 104D South 37th Street?
That's not
Would be me.
It's
Okay.
it's BC and D, it just says D on the.
D is the subject and B
Yeah.
and C is the other two involved.
Okay. Mine says DS,
South.
South. Got it. Okay. 104D South,
Right.
37th.
37th, right.
We're a little slow sometimes, okay.
Okay.
And your name is, and you live where?
Carol Irwin. I own the unit next door and own it now, D.
Okay,
And I'm also representing Mr. Richard Holcomb. He owns B. So we went together and bought D, and we want to get a replat and divide those 3 units into 2.
okay.
So the density goes down.
Mm-hmm.
I think everything's there that kind of shows it, what you need. Only one survey was available. Mr. Budd's survey was in his house, you don't tell him where it's at. And the D survey, you can kind of tell the boundaries of it on my survey for C.
Okay, so will these be freestanding structures, attached structures?
Attached. just
Attached, and they were previously
Attached.
3 of them attached.
There were
Triplex.
previously 4.
4, okay.
So the 4th one is on the other side of Bud, and I don't know what they're gonna do. But we would be connected.
So you're basically taking 3 attached structures and making 2 attached structures, okay? And you'll be building on the slab that was there. I don't know if it words in your mouth.
Right.
Will you?
Right,
Okay.
correct.
Did you say there was a 4th structure there?
There's 4 in that group. It's the first group behind the gas station on 37th.
But there was only 3 in this.
In this,
Okay.
involved in
I
that
thought,
shed.
I thought you said there was 4.
So there's one more there. Okay,
So you'd be building on part of the slab.
The part that they now occupy.
yeah,
You just be increasing the square foot of each one.
They would be wider.
yeah.
2 units would be wider.
Yeah, I'm just trying to visualize. I mean, there's, if completed, there would be a little bit of slab left over for the 4th owner, is that
No,
right?
no, no. The 4th owner is just how they were.
Oh, they
Bud's unit
exist.
and my unit and the one we bought, we would take and divide it into two, so our units would be wider than they were before.
Right, but the fourth owner would take their
Still be
position
the-
on the slab that's
Just
remaining,
as they
if
are.
there's a slab remaining.
Right.
Okay, that's where you were going.
Yeah, I just didn't know if the fourth owner was a structure there right now or a slab.
It's the structure still there.
Okay.
Okay.
All four of them are still there, but we can't tear them down till we settle with our insurance.
Okay, thank you.
What about all the set, I mean,
They can build on the old slab.
but with the fourth one there, what is it gonna leave them with?
There's
Whatever they want to do, that's
Whatever they had
they're
before.
originally the same place they were in before.
It's still there.
No different than if they built three back in the same
Yeah,
footprint.
so-
too.
Just figure 1, 2, 3, and the fourth one would be right here, which is there now.
They're in the same position they were before the storm.
Would the units built later, would they still be attached or would they be detached?
Attached.
Attached?
Uh-huh.
Attached.
So the,
Okay,
I'm confused about this.
well,
Okay, I understand what they're doing here, but
Yeah.
we've got a fourth one.
it's there.
Yeah, it's there, and he can build exactly the way he was before the storm, but he can't change.
It would
Any of
have
the
to be
setbacks.
attached. He would have
Yes.
to be attached.
Well, no, he doesn't have to be attached. Well, yeah, he'd have to be
Yeah.
attached if he wants
There's
to
no room.
rebuild on the slab. And
Okay,
it's the lot's so narrow that he has to be attached, or he can't build.
okay. that
He
was-
doesn't have to build, it's there, so you're just gonna come
Okay.
up to that.
All right.
Okay,
I have Adrian may have some background on this. I'm looking at the property appraiser site. It looks like this is all one lot still with multiple parcels.
Uh-huh, they're each single parcels. Each unit has its own parcel number.
Okay.
And, the two interior units were like 16 by 101 or something like that. The end unit that we bought is a little wider than the
Right.
others. But they're attached, 4 units attached.
Right,
But we're
four
only
units
talking
on
about
one
3.
lot. And so what we'd be doing is formalizing and solidifying the fact that there could be multiple units. I think in the past, they probably were originally done as apartments or something like that. But
They were attached townhomes.
yeah. Well, my point is normally you wouldn't have individually owned attached townhomes, multiple ones on one lot, normally.
you'd have it broken up.
But what we're doing anyways is, we're considering something
Was there
to
before?
divide the lot anyways.
Yep.
This would make it more correct on paper.
Okay. Anybody else from the public have any comments? Okay, close the public part. I'm sorry. Anything?
We own on 37th Street still, 106C, and we're good with it.
Okay,
We
great.
wanted to do that with the neighbors, so, you know, to make it bigger, they're 16 wide's
Tough.
narrow, it's tough.
Okay,
So we're absolutely good with that.
all right. Any comments from the board? We've kind of heard from the board.
It reduces the density in an area which was way too dense to begin with. It's advantageous to both the city and to the owners, so I think it should be approved.
Okay. Any other board comments before we move on? Any motions?
I move that we recommend to the council to approve the replat on 37th Street.
I'll second.
Okay, second. Adrian?
Mr. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Kerrigan,
Yes.
Mr. Driver,
Yes.
Mr. Masters,
Yes.
Mr. Bush.
Yes.
Okay. All right, next one we have, Adrian, I have on my original agenda is 604 Fortner, a variance request. And we'll go ahead and open the public meeting at this time, public hearing for 604 Fortner variance request. Is anybody here representing 604 Fortner? Okay. I can go ahead and just read you what it says on the application. I can't speak for the owner, but basically they're requesting, I'll just read it. 604 Fortner Ave contains a duplex. The owner is requesting to rebuild the deck destroyed by the storm from a 5-foot wide deck to an 8-foot wide deck. And the challenge with this is that they would be cutting into the setback, the city setback, which is 7.5 feet on the sides. So, this is standard around, there's reasons for that 7.5 foot setback. And, the staff recommendation, is,
Didn't have one.
didn't have one, so,
There kind of is one.
Well, it may not meet the setback requirements, that's not a recommendation. That's simply stating the fact.
I think,
And while the owner believes the wider deck makes it for a safer surface, comma, read between the lines.
Yeah, my question, had the owner been here, would have been, why does adding 3 feet to the deck make it safer?
Yeah.
Because without somebody explaining it to me, I don't understand that.
well, 3.5 foot is a normal walkway width, so,
How, the deck was 5 foot before, right?
yes,
And now they want an 8-foot deck.
yes.
Causing them to need a variance of 2.5 feet.
Right. Okay. Anybody, public, have any comments? Yes, Lisa?
I oppose it simply because of what we've said so many times before. This is not a hardship. I've got 5-foot wide decks, and I can't walk well, and they're just fine. So it's not really a safety issue, so there's no hardship here, there's no variance, and can of worms, here we go again.
Yes.
So I would oppose it.
Okay. All right, close the public hearing. Anybody in the board have any additional comments we haven't heard?
Just that I see no reason to grant it, I don't see a safety issue.
One point I would make, we had the same issue, and my understanding is you can build a deck up to the property line or a structure that's 6 inches high. So an alternative to this individual, which Adrian, you might pass on when you talk to him, is they could change the height to 6 inches and make it 8 feet that way if they wanted to. I know that's not always preferred, but it's an alternative, and we're trying to help our citizens whenever we can, so just thought I'd throw that out.
Just a general comment before you make your decision. So the variance has to require something unusual about the property itself that creates an undue hardship.
Right,
There's not much on the record about that.
right, can't be for convenience of the owner. Okay,
Motion denied.
need a motion to, regarding the variance request?
Make a
For
motion to
604
deny
Portland?
the variance request.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Hogan?
No,
Yes.
yes. You know what that means.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Driver?
Yes,
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Gets them every time.
Okay. Adrian, do we have paperwork for,
Page 35 of your packet, but there is no staff recommendation because staff really doesn't know what the request is for. But luckily they're here.
okay, so 1002 Highway 98, let's open the public hearing, and it's your floor.
Thank you. I'm Chris Tamak, this is my wife Susan, this is Steve. We own 2 of the units at 1002. 102 was 4 connected townhomes, 2-story townhomes, is right there next to Gulf Foods, erased by the storm. So each individual lot is 16 feet wide, 75 feet deep, and we understand that the city will allow us to build to the original footprint. But we also understand that there are new rear and front setbacks allowed for residential properties and such, so we wanted to request that.
They're really, just to stop you a minute, they're really not new.
They're not new.
They've been on the books a long time, since the
Okay.
early 90s, I think.
Okay. Well, what, as it was explained to me, we're currently, the way our townhouse that was built, the front was 16 feet, the rear was 18 and a half. And those, since that was built, was changed to 12 in the front and 10 in the back.
Should be 20 in the
There's
front,
20 in the front.
10 in the back, 7.5 on the
Well,
sides.
So we're on general commercial. I don't know if that makes a difference or.
Yeah, they just clarified at last week's council meeting that it has to be,
12.
it's 20 in general commercial for residential.
Okay, if,
Okay, so the new
It is 20, yeah, just
Okay.
hasn't changed. There was an argument briefly that we weren't sure, and,
Is the front 12?
no, the front is 20.
The front's 20?
Yeah, the
Rear-
back's 10.
Back is 10, okay. Apologies. Is this something that we can adjust to and still keep the 0 setbacks on the side? Because we're not going to be able to modify our side setbacks because we're 16 feet wide and that's pretty much as small as you can get a house.
Right. It's hard because we don't have a picture of what you're trying to do, but just in my mind, one thing that's the free card, I guess, is you can build back on your slab.
Right.
So whatever your slab was before, if it didn't meet the current setbacks that we just spoke about, you're still okay to build back on your slab. But you can't go outside the slab unless you're meeting the new setback requirements.
And that would be for all dimensions on each side?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think I just figured out the request.
Yeah.
I've been trying to figure this out.
And we've been trying to figure out
Well,
how
help
to
us.
define it.
Are you trying to make the building bigger by going towards your back setback?
Yes.
Got it.
So we kind of had, where we are, it was kind of a marshy land back there. It was just dense forest and very murky marshy. And we had a patio that was not part of our slab. We had like how big was that patio? 10 feet, about a 10-foot patio. We were a 2-bedroom, 1.5 townhouse, all 4 of us were. We're wanting to make it like a 3-bedroom. Some of us are wanting to go 3-bedroom. So with that additional, what was our patio, 10 feet, that would give us additional livable square footage in these units.
And help absorb some of the additional costs we built.
So how far is it from the edge of your patio to the lot line?
Maybe 2 or 3 feet, I think.
Yeah, so you couldn't do that because you'd have to meet the requirement of 10 feet.
Okay.
Now, your patio might already go over that, but that's okay because it's a patio, not a
So like
structure.
livable, okay.
If it's not a structure more than 6 inches, just like what we talked about
Okay.
before.
Can you go up? I'm wondering if that's allowed on the existing footprint.
That's what I was thinking too, is can you
Yeah.
go up?
Yeah.
Well, go
You should
ahead.
be able to.
We'll have to explore it. So are patios grandfathered into the footprint?
No,
No?
because it wasn't part of the structure.
Okay.
If it was an attached
And-
porch,
but
it would be.
It wouldn't be an issue because you can build a patio out. So you could have your house back just the way it was, assuming it's gone.
As long as it's
And the
not,
patio's there.
as long as it's not an impervious structure, that's the whole reason for the elevation, it's the pervious issue. So as long as they elevate whatever they do, they're good to go out to the line,
Right, if they meet the pervious ratio.
if you meet the pervious structure.
And that would probably be, are you low density, or you're commercial?
Commercial.
General commercial.
For general commercial.
90%,
Yes.
so that wouldn't be an issue then.
So to make this easy, I think the request is for a variance from the side setbacks to 7.5 feet.
Yes, that's what it is.
So they want 0 setback on the side.
On the side setback,
Mhm.
yeah, okay.
We kept talking about front and back, and that's what got me so confused and had Tammy confused, but it would be that, it'd be a variance from the side setback.
So, right now, from your, structure that was there before, or your slab that's left, was it 7.5 feet to the property line on the sides?
No,
It was not.
we had none.
And I'm not trying to be
You
rude,
had
I'm
none.
trying to calculate something.
Okay, so you were 0 then, but you can build back 0.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As long as you
So
On
we,
the
yeah,
free
so
card.
we were completely destroyed. We
Yeah.
have since had our slab completely removed, so now we're just dirt.
Right,
It's just dirt. But yeah, so we had 0 setbacks on the side. We
So-
literally went to the property line on each side of us.
so with the free card, you can do that again, but you
Right.
can't do it in the back.
We can't do it front, we can't go deeper,
Correct.
basically, okay.
For free card, we wanted to use that side and go bigger since we have
Right.
that room. But
Can't do it,
you have to, if you're gonna rebuild anything, it's to the new, or you can use the existing.
Okay.
does that make sense?
I think it does.
Okay,
Gets a little confusing.
might not be what you want to hear, but.
It just gets confusing.
What was next door to these?
So Steve, so Steve owned, there were 4 units, we were number 4, Steve was number 3, and then you had number 2 and number 1. If
There was a
you,
threeplex unit next to it.
But I'm talking about outside of those 4.
yeah,
Well,
so-
on the other side, there was an empty lot,
And
that
then
used to be,
Gulf
I believe owned by the
he
Loma
owned by
Vista guy.
that motel guy across the street.
And then my dad owns the one next door to that, which, there was a green threeplex, so one unit above and 2 small units underneath.
So what does that do, if somebody builds next door, they'll have a 7.5-foot setback still?
Well, the unit we're living in, we're talking about here, didn't have no setbacks before, but the other one had like 3 feet.
I'm talking about your neighbor, the neighboring lots, not your 4,
It's a vacant lot, they would have to meet the city's requirements under the law.
which is.
7.5 feet.
Or 10, no, 10, because you gotta have 10 feet between structures.
Well,
Set for it to be 15.
our building that
Well,
was there before
right.
was, about 3 feet off the lot line, between the building that we're talking about and the building I was living in.
So we had the 4 townhomes, if you're looking at our townhomes, Steve also owned the lot to the left of us. Okay, to the right of us was an empty lot that we believe the motel across the street, we believe that guy owned
My Ken-
that
Ken
lot.
owns
His sister.
And then we had Gulf Foods next to that lot.
Okay.
So Steve in his other house, that was my neighbor, he also didn't really have any setbacks.
I don't really have any plans in the near future to build anything on 1004 right now, but I don't know.
Right. So any other public comments? Okay, just to clarify then from the board standpoint, and other board jump in, I think what you're asking for is more depth.
Yes.
To close that gap between the end of your structure as it exists before and the back fence line, or what, fence or no fence?
Patio, yeah.
Property line, and that still needs to remain at 10 feet unless it was closer before and the patio doesn't count.
Okay.
Okay. Doesn't mean you can't build 2 stories.
Okay.
Were they
What-
just stars?
But
We
they
were
were already,
two
It was
stories.
2
Okay.
stories.
We
They
were
wanna go
two.
Okay.
3, right?
Yeah, and I think
Just-
what we have to be, I think the law is we have to be up 3 feet now, is what we have to be. So our thought was we were gonna go, whatever our height restriction was, we were gonna try to go up to that height restriction, which based on that, I believe we'll be able to get 3 stories out of it. We were just wanting a little bit more depth in the back.
Yes, because 0 feet doesn't start until where you're allowed to go.
First floor is the measuring for 32
Is
feet.
0. plus
So
32.
your height that you, if you have to be, how high did you say, 3.5?
yeah, you have to build up 3
We
nests.
have to
So
be,
3.5 doesn't count, or it's added on to the 32, whichever
So
way you
at
want to
3
look
now,
at it.
0, 32.
So if you went from the
Okay.
grade up, you'd be 32 plus 3.5.
4.5, 1.5 feet over the freeboard,
Yeah,
Yes.
for the freeboard.
whatever the city requires.
First floor, so it's right in there.
Get in the weeds. Yeah.
So probably can go through. Okay? Any other board comments? Do you have anything? You look
No, just.
apprehensive there.
No, I would just say that even though it seems like you've worked this out, you still should vote and make a recommendation.
Right, let's just get ready.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
confused about what we're doing here now.
They're requesting a
They're
variance.
requesting a variance in back and on the sides.
No, just on the sides. Not a back area.
Well, I thought they wanted to go deeper.
They wanted to go deeper to the setback line.
Reclassified as.
Yeah. He wants to go to 10 feet instead of the 16 or whatever we're at now.
I think 18 and a half is where it is
18
now.
and a half now. So it's just the side.
Okay, my comment is they were non-conforming structure to begin with. Based on what the city council did, they can rebuild on their slab, without it being an inconvenience to them. I see no reason to grant the, variance.
Was that a motion?
No,
Do we have
just a comment.
Okay. Any other comments? Do we have a motion?
I make the motion that we recommend the city council, deny the variance for 1002 Highway 98.
Do we have a second? Okay.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Okay. Just as
Thank you.
as a comment, we've been consistent in that regards. If you go back and look at the minutes or review video, you'll see.
And the council will still hear it next Tuesday.
Nothing new.
Well, we
Now,
appreciate
just
the
because we
time.
said that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
They'll do it
No, we
that way.
appreciate it, no,
we're
no.
only a recommendation, council makes the final decision.
Yeah, and I can tell you, it's very difficult to say no.
Well, I'm sure, it is. No, I appreciate you hearing us,
We have
so,
to do that a lot.
that's all right.
It's always hard to do.
Thank y'all.
Thank you for coming. Okay, next one is land use change and comp plan amendment, 114 12th Street.
That's been withdrawn as of this morning.
Okay. Will we see that one again, or no idea?
Missed
I would like to make a comment on the signs that go up, the blue signs, you know what I'm talking about? While, if there are any others on that section of highway that is closed, remember, no traffic can go by there, so nobody will see these signs if you have any more during the highway renovation. So just remember that even though you put out a sign, there's no traffic there to see it, if it happens again. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, except that there is access from the backside, and if you're,
Are they
If
gonna
you're
put it on the
there,
backside?
yeah, if you're
Okay.
there as a resident, you're coming in the backside, you might see it if you walk to the beach, but I hear you loud and clear.
I'd like to make a comment on this, although it's been withdrawn, because we may see it again. When you look at going from tourist commercial, or to go to tourist commercial from low density, based on a little bit over 5 acres, they can put 93 buildings in 5 acres if we change that to tourist commercial. When you look at that plot of land compared to everything that's around it, it doesn't fit in. Doesn't even come close to fitting in. It's everything around it for at least a quarter of a mile is all those low-density residential, with a density of 6. And we're talking about going from 6 to 18. And that's just really overcrowded, in my opinion.
Okay. 103 36th Street, open the public hearing on that.
Mr. Corey.
Mr. Corey, you're up.
36th Street?
Yep.
103.
I'll start that.
Okay.
Corey Zach Giles, 98 Real Estate Group.
Wait, where are we at?
We're at, this is,
Well, where in our package?
this
Page
is all you
49.
get.
Page
Right
49.
there. One map, that's all we got,
That's coming later.
so,
Is this the one that was handwritten?
Yeah.
yes, here it is right here.
Yeah.
Unless there's something in the additional, in the new packet, nothing additional, okay.
He might have some.
I've got a second page. I'm sorry, we've been in a rush to put this together.
This is the property, to get y'all familiar with where we're talking about, this was Frost Pottery for the last number of years. Okay, Corey's owned the lot behind Frost Potteries also, which is on tourist residential. Frost Potteries is on tourist commercial. For years, we turned down trying to sell that lot for people to put a single-family home, because we said, well, if we ever wanna do anything real commercial, you guys know 175 by 100 lot, you can't really do with stormwater or anything. So, for 6, 7 years, we've talked about, for Frost Pottery, for that to be a decent commercial location and have a restaurant or anything with parking and stormwater, you just can't do much with one lot. So they own the lot behind it, and we're trying to get 2 lots on tourist commercial instead of 1, so you can do some commercial options.
Stop a minute, behind it, meaning going towards the
Second circle there.
okay,
Yes, sir.
so you're headed towards the beach, not
Correct.
going west, or east, sorry. Okay,
So that's the gist of this request, is to try to figure out how to move forward, everybody we talk to for commercial purposes, 1 lot's not doing any good. So either, we get this one zoned, and can try to do something a little bit larger, where you can actually put a shop or a restaurant, or even 2 lots is very hard with parking to do much commercial with our requirements, but that's our attempt tonight, is to try to at least get this as 2 instead of 1.
We thought it might afford more ideas from the market, and then it'll still, of course, be subject to site plan approval and whatever business we're moving in that direction.
Adrian, did we send notices out to the surrounding residential properties?
Correct.
Okay, and,
And it's been in the advertised in the newspaper?
Yes, yes.
okay, do we have anybody here that wants to,
Okay, is this now residential general, or what is, because we don't have tourist residential,
It's high density residential.
high density.
It's high density residential? That's what tourist
That's the new
residential
name.
became. Oh, okay.
That's the new name.
It's the second lot from 98 going south.
Yeah.
It touches general commercial, or tourist commercial.
Yeah. We talked them being adjacent contiguous, it would be a natural to have a bigger, better opportunity in that sense, maybe.
Ron
So-
Atkinson, 102 South 35th Street. We joined Mr. Corey on the back there.
So when you say the back, are you going towards, are you
I'm on
here?
35th Street and I joined the lot that he's trying to.
So you're over here then?
That's correct.
Okay.
I guess my question is, what are you gonna do with the lot?
Well,
And the reason I asked that question is last year, the planning and zoning, had a request to rezone 5 acres on 15th Street, and the city council refused to rezone it because they didn't say what they were gonna put in there. I'd like to know what's gonna go in there.
We're trying to make it more marketable is the truth. I work with Mr. Corey and the family, and every commercial entity we got, so we can't do anything with one lot. So if we could get 2, then we would be marketing it, but it's similar to the 5 acres, just 5% of the size, but we do not have a firm plan to say we're gonna put a boat dealership or something like council wants for that.
One of my problems with that is they're getting ready to change or have changed the commercial setback to 10 feet. Okay, if you sell that to somebody and they Bubba Biker Bar goes in there, they can run down the alley right there, and I'm 10 feet from, if I build on my setback, I'm 10 feet from all those bikes going down the alley.
Yeah.
And it is a residential
Well,
area.
again, the ultimate use will be up to approval of a site plan and a formal business design. What we're trying to accommodate or accomplish is a larger opportunity for a commercial scenario.
And I totally understand that, but you're still trying to put it in a residential neighborhood there.
Right, but it's adjacent to a commercial property, and there's not space in a general commercial one lot to accommodate hardly any business, so most of them have gone to triplexes, and we just think it'd be a good opportunity near the center of that span to have some other opportunities.
And I totally agree, but if you change that to general commercial, then the density changes from 6 or 8 to 18. So you could put up a triplex or whatever you so desire to do that. That's problematic for me as well, because if the variance, if you say there's a 10-foot variance and there's a triplex there, and you could put your deck, if your deck's over 6 feet high.
6 inches.
Okay, let's say they put a deck on the first floor there at 10 feet, well, they can look right in my yard right there.
Well, they can't be any closer than anybody else can be, 10 feet.
Oh, so the deck can't go over into
If
the,
it's over 6 inches, it can't,
if it's over 6 inches,
high.
oh, okay.
So you're absolutely right. If it wasn't that way, they could put a 10-foot deck and look over your 6-foot fence and see what you're doing in the backyard, but right now, it's 6 inches. So.
And,
it's all
and I
gonna be-
understand what he's trying to do, it's just problematic for me to not know
Well,
what's gonna go in
I
there.
understand, it's a little different and whatever, and you're right there. But at the same time, I've found in the past that the city takes a long, smart look at a lot of things, and it'll be subject to, if we get a contract, it'll be them presenting a site plan that'll go through the process to get public input and yada yada at that point. We're just offering an opportunity to have a bigger something special in a commercial sense.
But you're trying to put a commercial area in a residential,
Well, we're trying to attach to an already commercial area.
I totally agree, and it's always been that way.
Yeah.
But
It's gonna encroach, I mean, he's on 35th, we're on 36th where this is gonna be.
Can you show us where you're at?
So, he's talking about.
This is the
The
pottery,
We're-
that's the lot.
Yeah, we're right here.
So you're 2 down.
There is one in between the
Yeah.
properties. Okay, so depending on what they decided to put in there, we're gonna look at traffic. You know, what is it gonna bring down that street? Because it will.
Well,
Just
there's-
like on, excuse me,
Mhm.
just like on 37th Street, you know, there was a lot of traffic down through there from, you know, the 2 shops there on the street. So, you know, we look at encroachment with that business coming down that street, just like he would over there on 35th. And I think if it's gonna be residential, it needs to stay residential, and anything that fronts there, okay, that's okay, if you wanna leave that one front, but I don't agree with extending that without knowing what it's gonna be.
Okay.
Business is gonna cause more of a traffic jam on 98
Yeah.
than anything else.
Let me ask a question here. Are we talking about tourist commercial or general commercial?
Tourist commercial.
Because somebody's been talking about general commercial.
Our highway was tourist commercial, we'd like to make the additional one tourist commercial.
Can you read us what is available in tourist commercial? What
Everything you can think of,
what could
all the
you
way
think
from
of?
boutiques to personal service businesses, churches, water-related, well, not water-related, outdoor rec uses, gasoline, single-family dwelling, multi-family dwellings, marinas, restaurants, small hotels, you name it, you can build it there.
Okay. And that's tourist commercial.
That's tourist commercial.
General allows you a few more options, but practically tourist commercials, any of the things he just read is what would be marked right there.
Okay. Any other public comment?
And you do not know what would be going in there?
Correct.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
live on 15th Street, and I was very appreciative of this group and the council in putting some brakes on the property that was for sale on 15th without knowing what was going to be put there. You know, I know that's 15th Street is commercial, but it has been developed as largely residential. And because you let it be residential, then if you allow any kind of commercial, it's a problem for the residential that's already there. So I have experienced it on 15th, and I was very appreciative of what they're asking for. Some brakes on that.
Anybody in the balcony section?
I'd say on 15th, I was familiar with that deal. We're going from the least extreme density residential general all the way to general commercial. We're already up in, you know, the high level residential and adjoining commercial, so they're different, but I mean, all of your points are very valid, and what could come could affect you, so we understand and appreciate that.
Oh, certainly, and I say one more point. We own the lot that we leased the building to the Frost family for Frost Pottery, and it was a pretty busy retail scenario. And in essence, that small business, and it weren't a traffic problem, but they had so many items and stuff, they too parked some over into that extra lot and that was fine with us. But that just goes to show, even a small business needs some space. So, and you're limited on a single lot on 98. If you have one behind it, it could offer some opportunity.
Okay, good comment. Anybody else from the public? Okay.
I just have one comment that might be helpful. There was discussion about distinguishing tourist commercial and general commercial. Biggest difference is height.
48 and 32.
Right, 32. And then also you've got a little less impervious surface allowed for tourist commercial.
Okay. Let's close the public portion. Any comments from the board on this?
We've got two conflicting interests here. You know, it's been my contention for months now that we don't have enough commercial property in Mexico Beach, and we really need some. My problem with this is, you really need the commercial stuff, but without knowing what's going in there, I don't feel comfortable approving the change, because you're going from a density of 8 to 18, and again, 18, you know, per acre, in that area, we're talking a lot higher density. If you sell it to somebody who wants to build a housing development, a quadruplex, or whatever in there, we've got more density. So without knowing what's going in there, my initial reaction is to disapprove it, because I've got no earthly idea what might happen to that.
Okay. Any other board comments?
Well, you know, I was involved in the 15th Street too as a homeowner, and I agree with this gentleman here. Basically, without knowing what's going on there, I would basically disapprove it. I would not want to live over here on 35th Street and not knowing what's gonna move in there. You know, that's just,
Okay.
so, I would disapprove it.
Anybody else on the board?
There's already a business over at the first lot.
Say again?
This first lot was already,
Yes.
so they just want
Yes.
2 lots.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay. close the board part. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we recommend to the board disapproval of the zoning change from tourist residential to tourist commercial.
You actually have before you, it's a future land use map change for the comprehensive plan and the rezoning. I suggest you handle those separately. Do the future land use map first, the rezoning second. We all know that basically those categories are the same in the city, but we should still go through that formality.
Okay, so,
Can't make the change to the land use map then, land use.
okay,
Tourist
so,
residential, tourist commercial.
okay, so just to clarify, so Adrian gets it right, your first, motion is what?
Well, we only have one motion because we're not talking about doing rezoning yet, because we're not even addressing rezoning. So I move that we recommend to the city council to deny the move to tourist use, or for land use from tourist residential to tourist commercial.
Okay,
A second.
okay. Adrian?
Mr. Hogan?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Kerrigan? Yes. Mr. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Masters?
No.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
So there's actually, you don't need to address the zoning aspect because you couldn't recommend approval of the zoning now, you recommended denial of the land use.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Not, go ahead, Mr. Gordon.
If I understand what's happened here, we're recommending denial to the city commission, yet we can still present.
It's still gonna be on
the
agenda.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely, we're just a recommendation board.
But does that finish that part of it? I mean, did we vote?
We did, and just as a comment, reading between the lines, it sounds like there could be an opening depending on
Yeah,
a reapproach,
yeah.
say this is what we're gonna do.
Well, obviously, I see now, if we had a business in mind, it would be more readily understood and likely approved, but we don't always know.
Yeah, no,
Right, but while I have the floor, there was a comment, and I talked to some of the other city officials that I might at least mention in a discussion, conceptual sense, another land use issue. Now,
Yeah,
whether into that
we've got
state-
you on the agenda
On the end.
on the end,
Okay.
so hang on for us.
Okay.
Okay, St. Joe Company, Highway 98.
This is a humongous parcel that I don't know what the address is, so it's Highway 98. There's a
Okay.
map.
All right,
It is the blue area.
let's open the public hearing on,
I have some questions on that. I
Well,
see,
Why don't we let them brief us first, before we
Okay.
ask some questions?
Sure. We have, thank you.
can you state who you are?
Yes, my name's Dr. Precis, I'm with the St. Joe Company, and I live in Walton County. We have been working, we've owned this property in Mexico Beach for a number of years. We've been working with the city to put together a development plan, since the hurricane, to provide housing in the form of garden-style apartments, townhomes, single-family homes, and some, small-scale commercial, to help, the displaced residents of Mexico Beach, also the Tyndale rebuilding effort, really geared towards primary and the local workers. As we were going through our, plan, we reviewed the, comp plan and realized that, back in 2006, I think there have been 2 sub-area policies adopted. Our request is to.
That was when you were, excuse me for interrupting, that was when you were annexed into Mexico Beach. That was the
Yes.
agreement for you to get into Mexico Beach.
Okay, that was before my time on this,
Right.
so, but thank you for that. And then, what we are proposing to do is to amend sub-area policy A and allow us to develop just under the current, land use category of, I think it's tourist mixed use.
Okay,
It's tourist commercial.
And we'll be still going through our PUD process when we bring a development plan forward, for the project, and we're, talking about, doing the PUD for the entire 486 parcels, so.
you're talking about doing a PUD, is that what you
Yeah,
said? Okay.
yes, yeah, we've gotta do a PUD, in order to advance our project to the next step.
So this request right now, we're not asking for any variances for anything, we're just asking for the text amendment to eliminate that sub-area policy A.
Okay. So, well, I guess, does the public have anything to?
I do.
Yes, you go first.
Okay, I live on 120 North 38th Street.
Your
across
name
from
is,
the bridge.
sir?
I received a letter
Your
about.
name. Your
Your
name,
name?
What?
your name.
Just for the
David
record.
Johnson,
Okay.
my wife Connie. I received a rezoning letter since, I think my house is probably the only house across the road from that property. Corey's used to own, or they still own, a piece of property, St. Joe to the right there. Okay. And so I have some information about that property too. I'm like Al Cathy, known him for many years. I don't oppose this rezoning, but I don't want commercial stores. I don't want high-rise or apartments across the street from my house. And my neighbors will tell you the same thing, although their property isn't across the street from that property. I'm not totally against it. Of course, I'm sure you're gonna look at the increase in traffic, and because on the west side and our side, 98, there's a lot of problems. Instead of growing pulpwood trees, they want to grow apartments and houses and stuff, and that's business. I'm not against it. But right across from where I live, personally, I don't want any kind of businesses there. If you want to build some nice homes over there across from my property, I'm not against it, okay? I mean, I want to see the plan. I want to see where the houses are, where the business is, you know, and you know, I'm sure you want to help the community, and nothing wrong with that. F-35 squadron at Tyndall, I don't know if we're gonna see that, because that's one of the things, they got a F-35 squadron at Eglin, so I'm not sure what's going on, unless it's gonna be, the National Guard, or National Guard. That doesn't bother me either, you know. I've been to places, where there's no housing for people who actually work day to day for a city, for a county, and they need a place to live. They need a place to live. And businesses need a place to open small businesses, and, you know, like you said, we don't have enough commercial property. Well, small businesses are nice to have these little stores and maybe little restaurants to go to, you know, so I'm not against that. What I'm against is, don't try to build, because I'm gonna adamantly oppose you building any strip malls across the street from my house on one.
Or RV parks.
No, we're just mentioning an RV
Okay.
park at all.
Yeah.
There's a rumor going around town that has nothing to do with anything.
Mhm.
So if anybody's here to talk about RV parks, it's not happening.
No, but let me tell you that
Surveyor.
story. I've been
Surveyor
here many
told me
years. I don't know,
The city knows
Mr.
nothing
Corey,
about
either
RV
his dad or who owned that property across the street from me, to the right of St. Joe's property.
Okay.
And he was a fine gentleman. But anyway, what happened, one day there were some surveyors over there, you know, surveying.
Is this about the RV?
Yes.
No, well, not the RV, I just want to say why that was brought up, maybe people don't know why it was brought up. They were surveying on the side of St. Joe property, on the Corey side, and we said, and on the other side of the bridge, said, what are you guys surveying for? Oh, we're surveying for an RV park. I said, RV park, you're just trying to make us mad, right? The guy said, the surveyor said, no, we're not trying to make you mad, so we're surveying this property for some person out of Atlanta who's interested in building an RV park here. Now, to me, that's no joke, okay? And, you know, I know how people get sneaky, and they might say they want to build homes, but they're going to build an RV park.
Well,
Now, I
he's-
don't believe there's going to be an RV park, because you guys are not going to let it happen there, okay?
Okay.
If
Well, I appreciate your input, and we need to move on, because we got the
No,
agenda.
fine, go
We
ahead.
hear you loud and clear about RVs. I think
Mhm.
there's several other people in the room
Been
that
burning
probably
my
feel
phone
the
up all
same
day.
way, but let's stay on task. Zach?
I'm confused on exactly what you're asking. I mean, I thought I was here 10 years ago and it got zoned tourist mixed use, so I'm confused as to
So
what
we're
are
not asking to change the land use category, all we're seeking to do is to be able to develop within the confines of that tourist mixed use category.
You got zoned that 10 years ago, Nick, can you, dumb that down for me, what am I not following?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
so
I brought it up.
what exists right now is all properties in tourist mixed use.
Yeah.
That's a 2 dwelling unit per acre limit. There's not specific limits on commercial and office space, but it's confined by, how much impervious surface same time when that was done in 2006, instead of just adopting the regular tourist mix standards, tourist mixed use standards, there was also an additional requirement that it be a maximum number of 750 dwelling units, I think. So that's a couple hundred less.
As opposed to 9 something.
972.
So they're just taking away a self-imposed stipulation and want to be zoned regular tourist residential.
9 what?
Correct.
972.
It wasn't
Shoot per
self-imposed.
acre.
The other aspects would be that the current rules that are in place allow 55,000 square feet of commercial and 15,000 square feet of office space. They're asking for those to also be removed so that just the normal tourist mixed use standards would apply. They're not changing the zoning or the land use map designation, but they want to eliminate these special restrictions that only apply to the property.
Lisa?
Those restrictions were placed in there in 2006 expressly to keep this from happening. I was there, I can send you all the news coverage on it. This is an effort to remove the safeguards that the city put in place when this was done. The city was told in 2006, when they agreed to annex this, that the entire blue area, both sides of the highway, would only contain 750 dwellings. Right now, as I understand it, they want to put 972 up here. There will be an additional 250 to 300 on this side, is what Jorge Gonzalez told me, and he's the president of St. Joe. So you're talking about 1,200 houses where the city said we want no more than 750 to go in. That was the extra safeguard that was built into this annexation. Now, if you build 972 houses over here as opposed to 750, and the plans that we were all shown in the town hall meetings a couple of months back were 777, and if you remember, I questioned Mr. Gonzalez in the meeting about that extra. That is squeezing what is essentially the size of the town, which encompasses 3 miles, into a 1 mile area. So they are doubling the physical size of the town and putting it in 1/3 of the physical space. That is what the meetings in 2006 were partially about. It's how do we protect the town from being overdeveloped by just this thing. So keep in mind that those safeguards that St. Joe now wants removed were put there expressly to protect the town. And St. Joe knew this coming in, and they agreed to it. And now here they are wanting to remove it to put more in here. So keep that in mind. And if anybody wants the news stories, I'll be glad to send them to you.
Okay.
So if I could just clarify on that, the tourist mixed use land use category allows for a maximum of 2 units per acre. So that would be the maximum that we could do in that land use category. With 468 acres, I think it's 972 units. So I'm not quite sure we could get to the 1,200 units that you mentioned. That may have
That
just
includes been both sides, the 1,200 units.
So the 972 units would include both sides, and that would be what we would be allowed to develop under the land use
Okay, that
category,
is
not the 1,200.
That is in opposition to what Jorge Gonzalez told me, because this development that he was talking about, which is this, is separate from what he wants to do here, which he told me was 250 to 300 on the beach side. So Mr. Gonzalez said that. Evidently, there's a communication problem that starts at the top.
Just to jump in here, to go by what our zoning says, and help me on this, Jim, because you've been around longer than I have. It is the amount, 2 per acre. So if that's 486 acres, whatever the math is, that's what they could put on there unless there was, an additional variance or zoning or something done by, the council. So I don't understand where the president, I wasn't there in the conversation, don't understand where the number came from, but if that's in his mind, then that's something, it's just hearsay at this point. What they're here is to request to have the, number actually raised, as you discussed, but I don't think we can talk about a number pie in the sky based on what's being asked, so. We'd love some more input from the public.
What happened to the 750 number? What is that?
That was go ahead. Go ahead.
To my thinking, it's being changed from 750 to 972, even though it's still 2 per dwelling, so it's still a considerable increase.
You're correct. But go ahead,
Yeah,
explain
and
that.
I actually don't know where the 750 number came from. I know when we had our, open houses, we were looking at a development program north of 98 that we shared with everybody that had, a number of apartment units, garden-style apartments, I think it was like 400, and then a couple hundred, single-family detached homes.
And did you get all positive responses about that? I didn't get any positive responses about that.
Well, we got a lot of feedback, which is what we were seeking from, some good, some positive, some negative, some, have you guys thought about this? And, we're still taking all that into account. Now, we will be back, here, when we submit our PUD for the property, because we'll have to go through that, under the current, zoning or land use category. And we'll have a better defined development program, and we'll have to do data and analysis, and that's, at that point in the future.
Anybody
I've
else?
got a
Well,
question.
new person will come back to you.
Hey, Alan Pitts, I live on North 39th Street. Do you have, is this, what do you call it, eliminate sub policy A, do you have can you read it to us, is it short?
Yeah, it is short.
Yeah, I'd like to hear it.
And so sub-policy area A was and it's a couple of sentences here. Policy 1.1.5, for those properties identified on map 1.2 and assigned the tourist mixed-use future land use category by ordinance 513, the following maximum development parameters apply to the entire 486 acres. A, maximum 750 dwelling units. B, maximum 55,000 square feet of heated and cooled commercial space to include ancillary uses and structures. C, maximum 15,000 square feet of heated and cooled office space to include ancillary uses and structures. And then sub-area policy 1.1.6 is just updated to be policy 1.1.5. And that's the policy that's pretty lengthy, and it talks about the, developing adjacent to Tyndall and being conscious of
Noise.
airspace and
Yeah.
noise and all that.
Height and that stuff. If you wanted to look at this. Okay.
Okay, why are you seeking to, change it, at this time? Apparently it's been good for 12 or so years now with 750. Why are you now seeking to build up to 972?
So when we, if you've been by here, you see that we haven't done any development. So we really are, looking at a plan right now in response to the hurricane. And just felt like if we could, develop under the rules of the tourist mixed use category, it would provide a little more flexibility for us. We may build 972 units, we may build 750 units, we may build, 850 units, I don't know, it just, we were looking to just remove the restriction and move forward under the rules for that tourist mixed use category.
Just as a point of information on the cross-off, so basically, and help me on this, Nick, if we cross off the 55,000 square feet of commercial and the 16,000 square feet of heated and cooled office space, that means that they could exceed that if they wanted to. There's no cap on it. By crossing it off, doesn't mean we're eliminating the commercial, it just means that we're exceeding the cap on the commercial.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Back to Lisa, unless somebody else.
I have a question for the lady. Now, what they've been briefing to the news media, and the president of St. Joe Company said that you're gonna build 200 single-family homes, 400 garden apartments, and 100 villas. What's a villa? What's that mean?
Townhome.
Hmm?
Townhome,
Townhomes?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
So why is only 200 single-family homes? I mean, you know, it
So-
would seem to me you could balance it a little better than that.
We could, I think our initial thought was to provide some housing quickly for rentals for people in the area. If they needed a place to stay while they were either rebuilding their
Well,
own
FEMA
house.
does that with trailers. So I understand what you're saying, you know, and I know what large corporations do and everything, that's fine. And I understand part of it is you're trying to help Mexico Beach by building another Mexico Beach, and that's nothing wrong with that, I guess modernizing. But I don't see when I look at it, is your balance of single-family homes, affordable single-family homes. What if I'm a worker here and I don't wanna live in a garden apartment or villa? Then why don't you build more affordable single-family homes? You know, I understand, you know, I've been to Atlantic coast of Florida, up and down it, and so, you know, we know what development does. So that's all my question is, why this number and why not more affordable homes?
Zach, I'd like to kind of lean on you a little bit since you're in the real estate business. Do you have any thoughts on the density that's existing versus the density they're requesting as far as, just what your thoughts are from a real estate standpoint?
Well, they created this zoning, so it's kind of the tourist mixed use, it is their own zoning. The only other property that 12 years later, the court, we said, we like this, we'd like to be that zoning. 2 per acre is pretty restrictive, but it's pretty open-ended in the commercial. We don't know 50,000 square foot, 150,000 square foot, what they can do. So it's an interesting category where truthfully, we've never seen anything built to it. So you, me, the council, we don't know exactly how tourist it's gonna play out because nobody's ever built it. So we're open to the idea, but all a little, we'll see how it goes. I was reading about the disaster relief bill just passed, sorry for not paying attention, so.
That's exciting, let the record reflect.
Could I ask about the impact on infrastructure?
No, that was what I was gonna bring up.
I can't speak to that, I'm not a public works person, we've got language in the comp plan that this group worked real hard to say that nobody can build anything and put a burden on the infrastructure without our approval. So we would have to approve what they're interested in, and if it's gonna cost X amount of dollars, the city X amount of dollars, we would have to weigh that, is my understanding. They would obviously have to meet all the regulations that we have set up as regards to sewers and water connections and traffic and the other issue that kind of came up in our comp plan, which I know you addressed. My understanding is, Nick, help me on this, that if it's one parcel, it can have one entry onto 98 per parcel. So for that whole area, there'd be one entrance to get in there.
I haven't read up on that.
Okay, we struggled with that when we went through the regulations, so it's something to think about.
But I would think, we have several steps
North
to go here.
30th Street
Yes.
is
During
the other entrance.
their master plan they would present with their plan unit development, I think you would see multiple entrances and exits.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so we can approve additional exits that way.
On the infrastructure, in theory, those 750 have always been earmarked since '06. They've always said we've gotta do those, so we're talking another 200 units.
There's no way they can do one entrance.
Okay, anybody else?
Just in the spirit of the residents of Mexico Beach, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say, hey, listen, I think it'd be great if Mexico Beach was more dense and had more traffic, and we spread our fire department and our police more thinly, and we have some stop signs to manage all that, or stop lights, and I've never heard anybody say that. What I hear from current residents, and there are only a few of us in town, that what I've heard is the exact opposite of that. They don't want more density, and they don't want somewhere else and have that.
Well, are you saying then that we don't want a development at all?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying Mexico Beach can grow, but it doesn't have to be more dense, and it doesn't have to be, a huge expansion and, a lot more traffic, and I think that rests with all of you to be sure that doesn't happen. At some point, some zoning board or some council members or somebody put restrictions on that so it wouldn't happen, and I think it's up to you two.
Okay.
As far as the infrastructure upgrade to accommodate this, shouldn't the impact fees cover that, not have any expense to the city?
We have multiple steps to go before, and there's a lot of ways that's all handled. This is really a consideration for St. Joe to understand what kind of PUD to present to the city, because if these restrictions are lifted, they can apply to something different in every place. Yeah, all those things, cost of infrastructure, impact fees, they're all coming. We'll get there.
Okay, anybody else? Good conversation. Okay, close the public hearing. Any comments from the board?
I wasn't a part of this board in 2006. It doesn't sound like you know why these guidelines or limitations were put in place in 2006, but I would like to understand that before I dismiss those.
Okay,
I have one
anybody
more for
else?
her.
Kind of close the public conversation. So
Pardon?
we've closed the public part, we're just talking to the board now.
Oh, well, that's nice. I still have a question for it.
Okay, well, let us,
When is gonna be the plan that we can actually see the roads, the building
Ain't a
areas
long
and all
time
that?
from now.
When is that gonna be available? Since I live right next to that
that's
project.
part of the application process
When,
for the PUD.
okay,
To
when they
tell us
apply, okay.
Yep,
Okay, just wondered.
thank you.
They have to understand this issue before they can present the plan.
Sure.
Because the plan's gonna be impacted based on the decision on this issue.
And one question I have that I'm always curious about when I hear affordable housing. How do you build, I mean, what prevents me from going in there, buying 10 houses and turning around and selling them 3 days later for twice the money? How do you define affordable housing?
The bed falls out of the wall.
You have to go
I
out.
know, a buddy of mine lived in one.
It's difficult, I think, there's not a good answer for that, but I think we wouldn't all agree that it's difficult for several of our contractors, for example, that we're trying now to have rebuild the city. There's no place for them to live, and that's part of what they're doing. So affordable to me is renting.
If these guys build $150,000, $200,000 homes, I'm gonna buy 10 of them and turn around and call this guy right here and say, I wanna sell them for $400,000.
Yeah.
What prevents anybody from doing that? Nothing.
Well, I think the market, it's an open market, anybody can do what they want, but my guess is they can't get something up based on the prices in our area.
So the
for those
affordable
kinds of-
housing is just kind of a buzzword that really has not a lot.
Well, but if you think about townhomes or apartments, then you're putting more on that floor plan than a single home. So then that makes it affordable, because you can divide maybe 4 apartments in the area that you could put a house in. So to rent those apartments or to buy that townhome is cheaper than a single-family dwelling, would be my comment.
It depends on what your definition is of affordable housing, because what is affordable housing for our workforce is not the same as what is affordable housing for a lot of second homeowners or retirees or military. 2 vastly different levels.
Yeah.
So what is being built here will not be affordable workforce housing, and I am not talking about Section 8 housing. I'm talking about the people who actually used to work here and hopefully will come back to work here. The teachers in Gulf County, the firemen, the policemen, our workforce. That's a different level, and that is not being addressed by this.
Well, don't disagree, except that we're still a long ways away from knowing exactly what would be built, whether we approve this or don't approve it. It's the PUD application, then they've got to get more specific on exactly what affordable housing in their mind is. So, I hear you.
I will just reiterate what was done in 2006 was put there to protect the city. And I would hope that people would go back and search the Star and the News Herald records and read about what was there and why, because it's all in print.
I'll just make a comment, as far as my board's position, that kind of two thoughts on this. One is, to me, it's kind of a retrade from an '06 deal that was done. You could look at it that way. In '06, they agreed this was adequate, that was why they were annexed in. On the other hand, you could look at, somebody else could come in, not have to abide by these, and just go by the regular zoning, and they would have more rights than St. Joe would have under the current situation. So, to me, that's where it gets a little sticky. That's all I've got to say.
I agree with Jack, is that we weren't here in 2006, and I appreciate what you've got to say, Lisa, but not, having privy to it myself. I don't know, the key thing with me is, these restrictions were fine in 2006, and I haven't heard a reason to change them, other than it just gives us more flexibility. If you had a plan and could show me how you were gonna use these numbers, then I'd feel a lot more confident in approving it. But if this was fine in 2006, I don't see any reason why it's not fine now, without having more information.
Good idea.
Anybody else on the board, or Nick, you have anything to add from a legal standpoint?
I do not, Mr. Childs made a good point. We're focusing a lot on residential density units, but don't forget, this is also lifting the commercial and office restrictions. Think about that as well.
All right, do we have a motion?
I make a motion, we recommend to the city council that we deny the change in policy 1.1.5.
I second it.
Okay, Alex? Adrian?
Had more to write that.
That's okay.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Driver?
No.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that, just to add, I know you're in the planning phase, and you may come up with a really good plan where you need more than this. But without having more than what we've got right now, I just, I can't approve it. Because what was good then, I don't see a reason why it's not good now.
I think I would also add that we have always appreciated the relationship that we have with your company, and we're certainly always open to suggestions and ideas that you have. So we're also, more specific. We might think a little bit. It's your responsibility now to go forth to the council and present to them.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you. I
thank you for
appreciate
coming.
everybody's time tonight.
Okay. All right. Mr. Corey, I think you're up again.
Oh, no. Can I have that? But
You wanna take a pass?
Y'all got a tough job, I think y'all have, well, especially through all that everybody's been through here locally since 10/10, this has been crazy, but we too lost, our rental units at the end of 35th and 36th Street. And I'd like to discuss, at least in a conceptual manner, so that I can tell some of our families what how we should be leaning on this. We lost 13 units that had on 5 lots down at the end of
Beachfront.
35th and 36th Street.
This is the beachfront.
And basically, what we would like to do is spread some or most of that density on a little more workable scenario. Our family for 50 years had 4-plex on one waterfront and a 4-plex over on 36th Street, then 2 duplexes in a single lot. I wanted to hear y'all's reaction basically to a suggested format to utilize the waterfront a little better. Triplex on the 2 waterfront lots and then duplexes on the other lots, which would equate to 12 units. So in a simple sense, the grandfather from 13 units, we're suggesting a way to clearly do 12. Now, also like some of the questions that were reasonable, what are we gonna do with this, that, or the other? We don't always know that in the marketplace. What we're trying to do is making it simpler to go forward and or to build on some of the property that's grandfathered in, and we've kept all the slabs on the ground to kind of prolong the density idea.
How,
But
what physical area, how much area does this encompass?
It's 5 lots, so that's right out of an acre.
And it's a beautiful piece of land, and we had people smarter than me suggest maybe we should do a replat, and then that way something can be done in a more general sense without the setbacks of individual lots. But on the other hand, that would, in my understanding, would prevent us from, we just pushed down the building on that, it says 2, which is the duplex on the right on 114 35th Street. We had a disabled house we pushed, and now some of the family members want to rebuild that house. So the reason we're not doing the replatting, which was a great suggestion a few weeks ago, we didn't know if that would confuse the whole picture if we went to rebuild one, would that throw out the mix on the replat? So we just got mixed feelings, so we wanted to see how we could go forward, trying to get y'all's response on future land use on these grandfathered in situations.
Let me go back on this. Okay, you want to do triplexes on the Gulf, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and how about this one? What is this gonna be?
All the rest would be duplexes. That's one way to be simpler. And I've got it on this next plat. Just kind of pencil in 3, 3, 2, 2, 2. And the house that we just pushed down, we were wise enough with our wives' help to angle it a little bit so it would sit good on the lots and then only be subject to the setbacks and the height restrictions of the whole 9 yards.
So from a technical standpoint, would these be on the existing slabs, or would they be?
No, but the slabs, but we were leaving the slabs until it was requested that we show that the number of units we had. And I think 4 on a lot would be overcrowded and kind of silly and look odd and be maybe abusive to the infrastructure, but I think triplexes and duplexes would fit and work.
And can you meet all the setbacks without?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, right. We would come up with again, if we pulled one out to build on it and sold one, I just was trying to get some avenues to what we could tell a prospect that he could do, then he would create his site plan, again, for the city's approval.
Yeah, as long as you meet DEP's requirements, particularly on these 2 triplexes, and you can meet all the LDR requirements, I think what you've got's fine.
I think it would look.
Any action on our part, as long as if you don't use the existing slabs, as long as you meet the
I
requirements.
remember this one with the 2 that would be changed, right?
Well, we're taking a 4 to a 3, a 4 to a 2, so
Yeah.
this hadn't come before us
So
before.
the 2 here would be a 3, and that's really the only change.
Upward, that's the only one going
Yeah,
up.
but I mean, yeah, but you can go down, I mean. it
That
can
would be the only one going up, yeah.
So this would actually be the one.
Well, it's a touch less than we had, but we had a lot, and they were old style. We were gonna hope for something more modern.
Yeah, but I mean, you've got 4 here, you could build 3 without.
We can build 13 units according to the rules, we just have to do a 4, a 2, a 4, and that's very practical, so we're trying to,
Yeah, I
Ms.
mean,
Gaster thought, why don't you guys go talk to
I think you've
plans on and get their pulse.
seen our thoughts on similar situations, just isolating those on what we've done in the past. You know, 4s to 3s, we've already.
We get you to let us go down, when you give us 1 up, if we give 3 downs, it's kinda, we hadn't seen you do that yet. You hadn't had that come
Well,
up.
you're still within the required density.
Actually going down, yeah.
So it doesn't, I mean, you had 11, we're talking about 12, and you can go, if you say that's an acre, 18.
We had 13 units, so we're trying to get down to
Okay, then
12.
So, I mean, you're still within the density, so
But what we thought was, and I know it's tough on y'all's spot, because we don't always, we come up with ideas to try to help our plans, but we don't always have site plans, and I apologize, life is tricky that way. But this way, we can at least present something to get under contract, subject to y'all's approval, or subject to the city
Now, this
commission's approval.
is one I don't even understand what we're here, because it can meet the density, they,
What is the zoning on the property?
It was tourist residential, Nick, whatever that new category is, so, that's only what, 8 per acre? So we are needing a little bit of grandfathering to
Well,
help.
no, wait a minute, this is high density residential now, right?
HDR, tourist, right, it's HDR now, high density residential, which is 8.
It's just 8, yeah.
Yeah.
We need the grandfathering to help us on density, but are willing to give up some to,
But you wanna work with different footprints,
Yes.
that's the main.
yeah, don't wanna be limited to doing that again, Brandon.
Well,
Well, if we
if
go,
you are over, I thought it was just commercial, so if you are, then we're not gonna approve higher density.
Well, we're good on 13 units, there were 13 units there before.
Well, only if you go in the same footprint.
You don't have to go in the exact same footprint, do you? It's just if you don't use the footprint, then you've gotta meet all the setbacks. If you had a duplex, you can redo a duplex.
You can't go in with a higher density.
No, we're not asking to go higher density.
Well, if the density is 8 per acre, and you're looking at putting 13 in.
But if you had a duplex get destroyed on a lot, you don't have to go back to that footprint, is how the building department tells me. You just have, if you don't go with that footprint, you've gotta meet all the setbacks.
Right,
Yeah.
So that's, we know we gotta play by those rules,
right.
and we can do that.
we were just trying to find some numbers, approaching what we had, but not exactly.
But if you
You
don't
chop
go
it up.
on the footprint, you've gotta meet the new density.
Exactly.
No, your density,
Not density.
we're told we
but
have
setbacks.
13 units, period. Now you gotta, if we don't tick all those, if we don't keep all these exact footprints, then we've gotta meet all the setbacks.
so this is one contiguous piece of property, these are not
5
different
lots, 1 parcel. 5 different lots, 1 parcel. It's a little tricky, I mean,
And
where we
they've
wanna
been
get all get familiar with it.
We've had those apartments since I was like 5 years old, when I first started working down here, but, and now they all just blasted away.
I guess we'd have to chew on this a little bit, and it's hard to give you an answer till you actually, but we appreciate you
Well,
giving
tonight
us a
I
heads up.
largely wanted to
Yeah.
just have this discussion
Yeah.
and go to my partners and see what we're, next step
Yeah,
would
in,
be.
in general, we've approved less density, we've denied, variances on setbacks when, they wanted to take 2 and make it 3, or make the lot wider, or the structure wider, we've denied that, and that's,
But see,
not saying what we'll do in the
that-
future, but that's
Yeah,
what we've
that
done
would be
in
the
the past.
futuristic part. If we found somebody that wanted to do a duplex there and a triplex there, they would have to bring the site plan in, and if they needed a variance, then that would be a hurdle. But I just didn't wanna spend everybody's time and get contract on something subject to it that y'all are, say, I just was curious which way you're leaning.
Yeah,
To help
well,
plan our business.
I think you kinda understand where.
Oh, I do, I just.
We wanna meet the new regulations, if you're gonna go on the slab, you're covered, and,
And we can investigate that part a little bit on the side, that's fine, I just wanted to throw this out, because that's another area of business that we have this
Yeah.
confusing.
I think, Tanya knows the regulations pretty well, and you had some ideas, and wanted to sit down and.
She's giving us good on what
Play
we
with it.
can do, but, you know,
Yeah.
without coming to y'all, that's what we can do.
Well, just come up with a plan.
Yeah.
Go with it.
Yeah. We certainly appreciate y'all's time.
Okay,
I know it's not easy.
thanks for coming. Do we have anything else? Various and sundry items. Adrian's ready to go home.
I got nothing.
Anybody else have anything? Sure.
When I
Sorry,
spoke
my
to the
back's
lady,
to.
that's okay, I spoke, Linda Hamilton, when I spoke to the lady out in St. Joe, just a reminder that they're gonna build hundreds of houses in Callaway, they're gonna be 1,000 square foot homes. So that's gonna provide a lot of housing for the workers that we're concerned about, but also when they're gonna come to the beach, guess where they're gonna come, because we're closest, along with the 750 something people, so that could really, all of that could, a
That's
lot
not
of crowd to the
750
beach.
people, that's 750 units.
Right.
There are 3 or
Units,
4
yeah.
people per unit.
But
So
I-
that's like 4,000
Mhm.
people emptying onto a little piece of beach.
Yeah.
But this isn't the only place that's developing, because we need that, we need workers. We all know that, we can't get our houses rebuilt because we have workers, but keep that in mind, that's hundreds of people that are gonna be moving into 1,000 square foot homes, that's your, you know, lower income working people, and when they wanna go to the beach, they're gonna come here, along with all these other people, so our beaches are gonna be very crowded.
Well, there was discussion, Lisa, I think you were at the meeting, about building a walkway from the boat ramp underneath the bridge, so
Yeah.
they could get to the beach
Yeah.
without going down to the public beach. Of course, the walking to the public
I
beach is
asked-
public, but,
I I asked them about that, and they only had that one access point to get to the beach. You had to go down to the boat ramp, even if you lived on the other end of this development.
Yeah.
You had to go
People
down to
are
the
gonna do
boat
that.
ramp and walk on this boardwalk that they're gonna build around the canal and under the bridge, and that will go out to, the end of Canal Parkway. You pick up at the marina and going out there. That's to be their only, and when I asked them, how were they gonna get the people from the midpoint to the far end over, they all drew blanks, and I said, well, you're gonna have all of these people crossing that 1 mile strip of 98 and walking over the dunes, which are already protected. You gotta do something more than this, cause I don't think I know of too many people who are gonna hike a mile, carrying their beach paraphernalia, and then take this walkway. So
Scenic
that's,
walkway.
yeah, that's a problem,
Okay.
you know.
Good. Okay, do you have any business we need to discuss or anything? Nick, you're good?
I haven't thought.
Any of our group have anything? Okay. I need a motion to close the meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn.
You guys are doing a great job. We've got a lot of full agendas coming up. Thank y'all.
Thank y'all again, this
Thank you.
is not easy.
You do vote.
Okay.
Yeah, they vote.
Thank you.
Can you?
Just trying to get through it.